Hello and welcome to this week's crypto update. So what's been happening this week in the crypto world, what's happening in the macroeconomics, and what does this all mean for Bitcoin, risk on assets in general, and indeed the altcoins. So first and foremost, let's look at stablecoins. Stablecoins, Tether, the leading stablecoin out there, mints 2 billion in USDT as supply reaches a record-breaking 160 billion. What about overall stablecoins? Well, 2 weeks ago, the total stablecoin supply was 223 billion plus. It's now jumped to over 227 billion plus. That's a surge of nearly 4 billion in just 14 days. As well as that, earlier this week, the overall stablecoin supply hit a new all-time high of 227.23 billion. That's a 42 billion increase since the start of this year. Why is that important? Well, stablecoins are the dry powder of the crypto world. It's on the sidelines and being added and driving, prices within crypto, certainly within Bitcoin and elsewhere. So the more money that's flowing in here, the more money that eventually makes its way into other cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and altcoins. So there's more and more money moving in here at more and more rapid rates, which would suggest that there's a very positive outlook for what's come down the tracks with regards to crypto in general. On top of that, we see that Coinbase has hit the 100 billion milestone, which is huge. It's a company that is built purely around what's happening within the crypto space, and now there's talks of this being the first company to hit the $1 trillion mark that's built all around the fundamentals of what cryptocurrency is. So again, huge news and huge movement in crypto space. On top of that, we see Bitcoin bear Vanguard is now the largest holder of strategy. Why is this newsworthy? Well, Vanguard has long criticized Bitcoin, yet now holds the largest institutional stake in strategy, a company known for its massive Bitcoin holdings and very much Bitcoin adoption. On top of that, we see corporate Bitcoin adoption is not stopping. We have Cantor Fitzgerald is planning to purchase 3.5 billion of Bitcoin from Adam Black's Blockstream. So there's continued movement towards Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been moving in a hugely positive way now for many, many months and indeed over a year at this stage. So what else has been happening? Well, of course, there's the whole regulatory side. Wednesday night, the House officially advanced to final votes on both the Genius Act, which is built around stablecoins, and the Clarity Act, which is built around market structure. The Genius Act could hit the floor as soon as today, maybe tomorrow. The Clarity Act is expected to follow by the end of the week, again Friday, maybe into the start of next week. But these are two huge pieces of legislation that looks like it's coming to pass within the next couple of days, and with regulatory clarity comes even more interest from institutional adoption, which is already really starting to gather ahead of steam. But there's believed to be trillions of dollars now interested in moving in this general direction. A handful, and this piece of news seems to be almost put to the side, but for me is nearly as important as the previous two parts, and that is a handful of Republicans demanding that there be a ban on central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, before allowing anything else to move forward. They put that in place, they put it as a blocker before they would say that they would give a positive vote towards the other two acts, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. This for me is hugely important because I think the last thing we want to see is a CBDC, and the fact that this has now been built into the overall positive vote towards those two acts that we wanted to pass anyway is absolutely hugely positive news. And so the CBDC ban will be folded into a must-pass national defense bill. So all really positive news, very positive towards regulation and very positive towards not having CBDCs in the future, which I think would be hugely negative news overall. So the big question really that many people are asking are we on the verge of altcoin season? Well, let's have a look at a few things that may point towards that. First of all, let's look at altcoin outperformance, and the top 24-hour gainers are all risk on. So let's have a look. If you look at, first of all, if you look at outperformance, so Bitcoin in the last 7 days has increased by 6.3%, a very nice increase. However, if you look in the top 10, what have they increased by? So we've, 4 of them here that have done pretty much 20% or more. So outperforms of Bitcoin in the last 7 days, which could be a signal that we might be moving towards altcoin season. So for example, you have Ethereum here, 23%, XRP, 33%, you have the likes of Solana, 12%, but you have Dogecoin nearly 20% at 19.4%, and you have Lido staking Ether, which is 23.5%. So we've got 5 that's outperformed, but 4 of them have significantly outperformed Bitcoin. This is the type of thing you would expect to see happening in the move towards altcoin season. And in fact, if you go for the top performers in the last 24 hours, you'll see 2 of the top 3 performers are very much risk on meme coins. So they're meme coins, they're very much risk on, associated with risk on, and we can see that these are 2 of the biggest climbers of the top 3 in the last 24 hours. So there definitely seems to be very much a move towards that whole risk on side in that strategy. On top of that, we can see that we're no longer in Bitcoin season. What we mean by that. So altcoin season is defined by 75% or more of the top 50 tokens outperforming Bitcoin over 90 days or a 3-month period. The Bitcoin season is considered 25% or less of the top 50 tokens outperforming Bitcoin over the last 90 days. And what's it look like? Well, if you look at this chart here, you can see now that we're not at 25, we're not at 75, we're in between, we're at 39, but moving in an upward direction. We can see there's been resistance at that sort of level on a number of times before. Are we going to have a pullback here and retest, or will it move on from here? And is this the beginning of altcoin season? Well, that's to be determined. But what is the biggest altcoin out there, of course, is Ethereum. How is that performing? So staked ETH just won't stop climbing. As of today, there's over 65 million ETH locked up, and that's a growth of 981,000 ETH. Jumped in just 2 weeks. So there's more and more of Ethereum being locked up and locked up long term. That's a current value of 3.35 billion rise in just 2 weeks. On top of that, we can see here is a wedge. You can see the red line going across the top, the white line underneath. This is forming a wedge pattern on the Ethereum price. This is going over multiple years, going back as far as 2021. Usually in this wedge pattern, when it breaks big. Now, whether that's the upside or downside is undecided, but if it were to break, whichever way it would break, it would appear that it will break, when it forms this wedge pattern for a long period of time, when it breaks, it tends to break for, also a long period of time. So if this were to break to the upside, it's likely to break to the upside significantly and for a long period of time, which in itself could, again, be a marker for altcoin season being ready to go. So, as normal, as being week on week and month on month, usually positive news out there for crypto in general. A vast majority of it aimed towards Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been on a bull run now for many, many months, going into a year and a half and longer. It's come from under 16,000 to, hitting 122,000 so far, where we'll go from here. But the rest of the vast majority of altcoins out there have not had their run yet. Are we moving to that altcoin season? What needs to be in place for that to happen? Are we starting to see the indicators? More on that in the next video for our private members. Talk to you there.